Hi everyone, this is the 5th webcast of week 4 for InDesign 1, and we are going to be discussing placing images. I'm moving this up a little bit in the schedule because you're going to need quite a bit of this information to complete your lab for this week. So I'm going to be using a sample of the completed lab as the demo file for the things that we're going to go over today. I think this is where InDesign starts really getting exciting, is when we get to start bringing in images and placing them in a layout and then integrating text. And that's what you're going to be doing for this week's lab if you haven't already looked at the instructions. And the instructions look a little bit like this. There are 2 pages and a little bit on a third. Several of the tasks, actually the first 2 parts, you will not be required to turn in, but I really hope that you'll go through and do what it asks, because it's going to give you some experience playing around with whatever printer you have access to. If you have access to a printer, and you're not required to have access to a printer in this class, but it would be nice if you could play around a little bit with your printer. And then creating some new documents with different types of layouts, experimenting with some of the predefined page sizes that InDesign has for you. The third part will be the part that you're going to turn in, and that's the file that I'm going to switch to right now. It will be 4 pages. Let me open the Pages panel so you can see a thumbnail. The first page will just contain a text box, and it'll be based on none, probably, because you won't need any other information except a text box with centered text saying sample photo pages. The rest of the pages will be on 3 different places or topics. I just didn't have enough pictures from different areas, but I've included a link to several different folders of images that you can use, but I'd love for you to use some of your own images. If any of you have images of places that you've gone, it would be fun, and I don't really care what quality the pictures are in, but it would be fun to try to put those in some sort of photo layout the way you see here. So the pictures that I had available to me were some bike racing pictures, some pictures from Carmel, and some pictures from Costa Rica. And in the instructions, there will be 3 different types of layout options that the instructions suggest that you use. But you're going to need to import images for this, and that's what I want to focus on right now. I have a master page that I've defined, and in that master page I've put a text frame across the top, which I would suggest for this particular lab to not make this a primary text frame. After all the work we've put into understanding a primary text frame, and I say don't use it. I think you're going to be better off with it just being a master text frame, which means that you're just going to draw a text box on the master page, and that will be a master text frame, master page text frame. The one at the bottom is going to be a little bit trickier because you're going to need to insert an auto page number. I would like the footers of each of these. If you can see, it says your name page 2, your name page 3. And I'd rather that you didn't have to input these pages by hand. And it's a really important feature that you understand how to introduce an auto page number. So let me go over that real quick before we get into these images. I've discussed this before and talked about why it's an A when we talked about something in a previous webcast. I can't remember which one it was in. But let me just review the steps again. So you put in all the text that you want there, and if I wanted this to be my name in particular, right, I would type my name. Here I just put a few spaces, a vertical bar and some spaces, and then put the word page, and then I pressed a space. And when you insert a space after something that is right aligned, and I right aligned this text so that it would line up exactly with the right margin, you're not going to see the space until after you put in an additional character. So I would place your cursor over as far as it will go to the right, go ahead and insert that space. If you don't see the space, don't worry about it. The next thing you're going to do is go to the Type menu, and you'll remember we have these 3 insert character options. One is for a special character, one is for white space, and one is a break character. Since we know that the page number is not white space or a break character, we know it's got to be this insert special character. It happens to be underneath markers, current page number. And because this is master page A, it is going to be an A. And you'll remember from that previous webcast that if this was a master page B, it would be a B. Whatever letter you have associated with that master page, that's what you're going to see for the symbol for an auto number. Of course, once we get to the document pages, if I just double click on one of these, you'll see the actual page. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and drag a new master page down and create a 4th photo page, just because this is what you would be looking at. And because this is a master page text frame, I'm going to need to release this. If it has dotted lines when I try to click on it, that means it's still connected to the master page. So again, holding down my Control-Shift key or my Command-Shift key, I'm going to click once. And now the border should no longer be dotted. That's always going to be your clue that you have released it. If it's a solid blue line, then it's already editable on the document page. And let's move to importing graphics. We use the exact same command to import text and graphics that were created in other programs that we want to bring into InDesign. And that is the place command, which is on the File menu, about halfway down. And the keyboard equivalent for that is either Control-D or Command-D, depending on whether you're on Windows or the Mac. The types of files we can include is a huge assortment of graphic formats, including native Photoshop, Illustrator, PDF. You can even import InDesign pages and have them appear as thumbnails. And that's how I created, let me flip back to this real quickly. That's how I created in the instructions these sample pages. I just imported the lab into another InDesign file. How cool is that, right? I just think that's awesome. Anyway, you can also, not that we're going to be dealing with this in this class, but you can also import multimedia files. So InDesign allows you to bring in sound and video files so that when you export that as a PDF file, someone can click on it and see instructions or see a quick movie on how to do something, which is probably why InDesign is becoming so popular for EPUB and app generation, because it does allow all these different types of media to be placed in the InDesign file, which then can be exported to a format that most of these readers can accept and display. But right now we're just going to focus on the images. When you place an image, you want to have your selection tool selected. And that's not always going to be required, but it's going to be helpful at the beginning as you're getting used to this. I'll go to my File, Place command, and then you're always going to be given an opportunity to navigate to an image. So in this case, I'm just going to choose this horseshoe bend from the Grand Canyon. Click Open. And you want to pay close attention to this icon. You'll see that there's an icon in the upper left-hand corner. In this case, because it's a rasterized image, some sort of a bitmap, and that can be a Photoshop file, a BMP file, JPEG, TIFF, any image that's a rasterized image, you're going to see this paintbrush. And you're also going to see a thumbnail of the image that you're placing. I'm going to escape just for a moment, and I want to show you a different looking image. Let's say that I bring in an Illustrator file. Now an Illustrator file will have a little helicopter, 3-pronged helicopter symbol in the upper left-hand corner. This will be the same for an Illustrator file as it is for a PDF file, because Illustrator and Acrobat actually have the same code. Most people aren't aware of that, but you can open up a PDF file in an Illustrator file. We do a lot of troubleshooting using that method. All right, I'm going to get back to that previous image, the horseshoe bend. Once you have a place cursor or your loaded graphic icon, we can do several things with this. If I just click, that image is going to be placed in the size that was designated in the application file. So in this case, maybe it was a, I don't know, let's see here, something like a 5 by 10. And that's how it's going to come into this file. Now I may not want this file to take up this much space. So how can I get around that? I'm going to go ahead and delete this and bring this in again. Instead of just clicking, I can also press my mouse button down and start dragging. And as I drag, notice that the frame being drawn is the proportion of the image as it is defined in its authoring program, in this case, Photoshop. So it doesn't matter where my mouse goes, as long as it continues in some sort of diagonal going down to the right, I can't change that dimension. This is done by default, and it's a feature, not a bug. This is supposed to help me because then I don't have to change the size of my frame to fit that image. If I want to break the automatic dimension here, I can hold down my Shift key, and now I can change that frame to whatever size I want, but that's not going to match the dimensions of my photo. So I really like this, and I tend to leave it alone in most cases. Now I want this photo to go from the left margin to the right margin in this particular case. So I do that, and then InDesign is telling me how far down the page it's going to go. I let go, and notice that it has fit that image now in that frame. It's no longer the full size that it was. It's been shrunk or scaled down. I'm going to move this up just a hair here. Now another way I can prepare for images is if you have a newsletter or brochure and you know that there's a certain space you want images to go into, and you're not the one who's going to be putting this piece together. This is one of the reasons that we have, great, I just lost all my tools here. This is why we have these frames over here on the left that aren't supposed to be objects, but they have the X through them indicating that they're a frame. So let's say that I create a couple of frames, and I want this one to go about, I don't know, 2/3 of the way over. Now, when I place an image, and let me grab a second one here, it's really hard to see this as I'm bringing this in. In fact, on my second monitor, this is showing a text insertion, which this isn't at all. You should be seeing a thumbnail. The top and the left edge has a dotted line. And that dotted line is a square that goes to a point to the top left corner of the thumbnail. That designates that if you click or if you drag, InDesign is going to create a frame to hold this image. But if you hover your cursor over the top of an existing frame, you'll see that horizontal and vertical line that meet up in the top left corner turns into a parenthesis symbol. There's an open paren on the left side of the paintbrush and a right paren on the right side of the paintbrush. And I'm going to escape out of this just for a moment because my screen is not showing that. And it could just be that it's my second monitor that it's not displaying it on properly, but nope, it's still showing an insertion cursor. So I sure hope that the webcast is catching this. Now that my cursor is over this rectangle, and it acknowledges it, doesn't even have to be selected. I click, and it places the image in that particular rectangle. But notice that it's not fitting the image. You can see this brown outline here. And that tells me that this is the actual size of the image. So I'm only seeing the very top left corner of this. So we're going to talk a moment about how we can make these things fit and how we can actually use a feature called AutoFit. One more thing I want to do. If you select a frame that you would like an image to go in, you can select it ahead of time, and then when you place an image, I'm just going to place that same one again, you don't even get a place cursor. It just uses that frame to import or to hold the image. All right, I can also place an image from the Finder window. And I'm not going to do that here, but basically you just have to overlap your operating system folder over the top. You can just drag the image onto the page, let go of your mouse, and it will place it that way. The reason I don't use that option very often is because I usually have my InDesign application taking up my entire monitor window. And I have a couple monitors here. I have a 27-inch sitting in front of me, and I also have my laptop screen, which is a really high resolution, smaller monitor, about 15.5 inches. And I'm using those to the full extent for InDesign. So I don't really like having to try to put a Finder window over the top of my application. Now I am going to have, Thursday night I believe, I'm going to be speaking about Bridge, which is a way to interact with your images in a slightly different way, and that's actually part of the instructions for the lab, which is, to me is not as important as getting the images in, but it is a nice thing to know how to use. Okay. Before I go on to fitting images, I want to do one more thing. I'm going to bring down another master page. And I want to show you this really cool feature when you import multiple images. You're not restricted to just placing one image at a time. If you know that you have a page that's going to require 6 images, you can place them all at the same time, and it holds them in memory. So these are the steps you take to import multiple images. I'm going to go to the File menu, select Place. You're going to learn the keyboard equivalent for this very quickly. Very few people use the menu command just because you're placing images and text all the time in InDesign. So get familiar with that one real quick, okay? All right. And let's say that I'm going to go up to the lab here. Show my lab stuff. These are the images that are included in the lab. So let's just take a look at the palace pictures from Russia. And I'm not sure if I want all of these, but I think I'm going to select all of them. So I clicked on the first one, shift-clicked on the last one, or I could have clicked on the first one, held down my Control key, and clicked on discontiguous images. But I said I wanted all of them, so that's what I'm going to do is highlight all of them. Click Open. And now my cursor has this number to the right of the paintbrush, and it tells me there are 6 images in this cursor. So I'm looking at this and I think, okay, I'm not sure if that's really the first one that I want. So I can use my up and down arrow keys to go through these images, deciding which one I want to place first. And I think I want to place the image with the fountain and the kind of Russia's Versailles, they say. And I'm going to drag across. And that's going to take up too much room. Let's do this one right here. And then notice now the number between the parentheses says 5 images. And I'm looking at this and I think, okay, maybe I don't really want this one next to it. Maybe I want that fireplace that has the jade, the green. So maybe that one would be better go underneath it. So I grab and drag, and I'm looking for my smart guides to tell me that it's the same width as the fountain grounds image above it. And now I have a chandelier, a fireplace, another chandelier, and a stairway. And maybe that stairway would look really nice here next to the jade fireplace. So I'm going to drag. And in this case, and this is what's going to happen to you as well, I really need this image to be taller. And notice it's going beyond the right margin. But I'll fix that later. Right? And then I'm going to place the fireplace. Let's see, which one do I want here? Oh, how about the ballroom? Again, I want this to be the same height. I'm looking for those smart guides to help me know if I have created that frame tall enough to match the fountain scene on the left. All right. And I still have 2 more images, but I'm not sure if I really want either of these. So I could either place them over here on the side, or if I decide that I don't want the picture at all, I just press my escape key and it deletes it from the images that are in reserve. Now let's go over this little situation here. I noticed that I didn't create this frame that's holding the staircase tall enough to match the scene with the fireplace. So I'm going to click on this image and I'm going to drag the top resize handle up until my smart guides tell me, that's that green arrow showing me that I've now snapped to the same vertical dimension of the fireplace. But now I've got this white space. The other thing going on is I went beyond the right margin. So I'm going to have to drag that resize handle over and snap it to the right margin. So how am I going to make this image fit? Well, this is the next thing we're going to talk about. We are going to talk about fitting images. And there's so much regarding links and fitting images, and when I get into more information about scaling and transforming objects in a later webcast, we'll get more detail. But these are the details you're going to need to efficiently try to size these things without driving yourself nuts. If you right-click on an image, we have a command called fitting. And the fitting command has several options. And I want to go through each one of these. Fill frame proportionally says, I want you to fill the dimensions of this frame, even if part of that image is going to get cropped out. I just need the frame filled. And that's what's happening in this photo. I know that I had a frame that's the wrong dimension compared to the photo, but I needed to fill that frame proportionally. And proportionally, that word is so important, everybody, because if you don't, you will skew the picture and it won't have a realistic proportion. And for images that are photos, people are going to notice that a person looks like, they are anorexic or they weigh 800 pounds. We've got to be sure that we're true to the proportions of that graphic. Fit content proportionally says, I want to fit the entire image in this frame. And even if that creates white space, that's what I want. So let me try both of these. Fill frame proportionally. Fill this entire frame. Notice there's no white space. But if I place my cursor over the content grabber and I hold down 1 and 2, okay, this gives me my real dimensions of the image. It's sticking out on both the left and the right side. And it's in a shadow, kind of ghosted, and my mouse is being held down this entire time. With that held down, I can move the image around inside and say, well, I really don't like the right side of this person who was in my photo accidentally. Maybe I can shove this slightly over to the left, get rid of that person, and see more of the staircase. So that's what I want showing. Now, let's try this a different way. I'm going to click, right-click, fitting. This time I'm going to fit the content proportionally. Not fill, but fit. And we can see that the entire image fits now, but I'm short at the top and the bottom. I've got this white space because fit means I have to fit the entire image. Next option, fit frame to content. I use this one a lot. I've brought in an image, the image is too large, I've shrunk just the image and the frame didn't shrink with it, and so I want the frame to fit to the content. And actually this is a great way to take care of this extra white space top and bottom. And I'm going to go ahead and use it to show you what this will do. So can you see how the frame came down from the top and the bottom? And now it fits nice and snug around the image. The only problem with this is that I really wanted that frame to match the vertical height of the one next to it. So I'm going to undo that, pressing Control-Z. And I'm going to go back to the fitting command. And I really think I want that fill frame proportionally. That's really the effect I want. I'm going to move this image over here slightly to the left. And I'm going to move over here to this image. Now I've also got people who got in the image here on the left. So I might want to play with this a little bit. Maybe I want this image to be larger, and maybe I can crop out some of this left and some of this right. I mean, this is a pretty awesome chair here, but do I really need all of it? What I want the centerpiece to be is this amazing fireplace. So, and this may be something you're going to want to do as well. I want to increase the size of just the image but not the frame. So with my content grabber, not with my selection tool, I want to be in my selection tool, but I want to be in an area where I can click on that image, and I know I've selected it when I see the hand tool, and I see that the color has changed from blue to a goldish brown. And I look up here and I can see that this image is at 102% right now. So what if I bring that up to, let's say 125. And I'm just using these up and down arrow keys. If it's not moving fast enough, you can hold down your Shift key, which increases it in increments of 10 rather than 1. When you do this, you need to be sure that you have left this chain link intact. That means that if you increase the horizontal size, increase or decrease the horizontal, it will also increase the vertical, essentially keeping this image in proportion. The last thing we want to do for a photograph is accidentally scale the vertical without the horizontal and vice versa. Now I'm going to move this over and I can see the ghosting of the entire image. And I'm going to pop this over here, and we're actually missing the chandelier. So I probably need to make this a little bit smaller. And I'm probably going to still get this person in here. Okay. And I click off of this, deselect, by clicking in the margin, and I have the image in that frame. Another option for fitting is fit content to frame. I hardly ever use this, and the reason is it doesn't care if it keeps the content proportional. It's just going to skew it to match the vertical and the horizontal offset. So you would only use this if you were trying to scale, let's say, a pattern in the background and you didn't care if it became disproportional. And that's what the only times I really used it. I'm just creating some sort of an effect in the background and I don't care if it's in proportion. Another one that I use quite often is center content. And I want to show you why that one is so important. I'm going to zoom out here, move over to this image, the little ballroom, and I'm going to drag that right resize handle over for the frame. And let's say that I click on this image and then I accidentally drag it. This happens quite often when I'm rushing. And now this image is way out of its frame. I can see that it's so offset that I only have a little bit of this left. And sometimes what happens is that it gets completely taken out of your image, your frame, and then you accidentally deselect, and you're looking at this empty frame. You know that there's an image, but you have no idea where that image is. This is where I just click on the frame, because if I click inside, I don't really get anything. Go to the fitting command. Just say, okay, please center my content. I have no idea where this thing is. And it brings it back and centers it, and then I have the option of going back and monkeying with it a little bit more if I want. All right, another couple options here. Clear frame fitting options, and then frame fitting options. So frame fitting options allows you to pre-program a frame or program it after you put content in it. And you can say, I want you to auto-fit any image I put in this frame. And I want you to use one of these options: fit content to frame, fit content proportionally, or fill frame proportionally. You can also choose crop amounts, and you can use this auto fit. Now I'm going to do this a little bit differently. I'm going to click on this frame, and then I'm going to go up to my control panel and click this checkbox, auto fit. And now if I bring in a new image, it will take the last setting, fitting setting that I chose for this frame, and it will apply it to any new image that I put in there. So let me just quickly look at what the name of this one was. Okay, this is clock 1. I'm going to go ahead and click on this frame, go to File Place, and go back to this clock. And because I have this Replace Selected Item turned on here in the bottom left-hand corner, it will replace any image that already exists in the frame that I have selected. Click Open. And because I had AutoFit selected, it went ahead and fit this image right into that frame with the exact same setting. In this case, I might want to change that. I think there's a little bit, maybe there's too much around the outer edge, and maybe I'd like the fireplace a little bit larger, because I can barely even see this incredibly beautiful and ornate clock here on the mantle. But I would have to think about that. And these are the things I want you all to consider when you're creating these photo pages. Think about what is it that you want to attract the attention to. You're going to want to be sure that your gutters match, and that's something that I haven't done very well here. Notice that I have this big, thick gutter here, but I don't have the same amount of space there. And if this is going to be the space, then I'm probably going to want to change that space between these photos. So I'm going to use my guides to help me create this space. Let's say I'm going to bring this one down here and another one here, trying to match that space. And then maybe I'm going to snap by using the bottom resize handles these two images here and pull up these here, because I want to take up all the space within the margin. Now all 4 of these, I want to be sure that they fit by filling the frame proportionally. Oops, sorry, I missed one here. So I'm going to shift click on all 4. And I'm going to choose Fitting, Fill Frames Proportionally. And I was able to modify all 4 of these at the exact same time using the exact same command, which is a real time saver. Now I might want to go in now and adjust these slightly. Maybe I want to, well actually, you may want to change the centering of the object, whatever it is, but these fitting commands will really help you be a little bit more efficient as you're trying to create these photo pages. All right, another thing I want to draw your attention to is all of those commands that we just discussed off of the fitting command have icons associated with them running across the top. So we have fill frame, fit frame, and it just goes on and on through these. So if you'd rather use icons, you can use those as well. If you want to be sure that in some cases you want to align them without aligning them to a guide, though I would like you to try several different ways. The instructions show that in one photo page you're going to drag down ruler guides and align your images to that. In another one you're going to use your smart guides. But you can also be sure that these things are aligned by clicking on two of them and going up to the align commands up here at the top, saying, well, I just want to be sure these are aligned to the top. Now mine went to the top of the page because in the align command, the last thing I told InDesign to align the objects to was to the page. So if you're going to make any type of an alignment between objects, you need to make sure that it says alignment or align to selection. And that way, if you click on two objects and you use any of the icons up here at the top, which by the way are the exact same icons you'll see in the Align panel, and it didn't move because I had aligned them properly to my ruler guides, but I usually use this as a confirmation or a backup to my alignment on the page. I'm going to go ahead and put that in preview. And the theme would be, again, I'd release this and put in, the name for this is on the image folder, but it's a palace in Russia. All right. I think that should get you on your way to putting in images and fitting those images, scaling those images. Please let me know if you guys have any questions. Submit them to the blog or send an email to me. And in the next webcast, hopefully on Thursday night, there will be time to also cover the links panel. Because anything that you import or use by using the place command into InDesign, you're going to be importing it through a link. It's not embedded in the file. And your control center for everything you've placed in a document is here in the links panel, which is below your pages panel. And you can see that this file has lots of images that have been placed. And this panel is so helpful in helping you replace them, find them, even finding them in your Finder, your operating system, not just within the file itself. So we'll be able to spend a little bit of time with that. Okay, and until the next webcast, signing off, and talk to you later.